check along with Steve Lynn. Steve, it's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while. Remember, I was struggling to log into my account to get on this video call because it's been so long, but we're here. Opening day is less than a month away. I'm excited to go, and we've got some news. Everyone in the world knows that Wicked Twister's gone by now, but
what? No. I actually have my piece of track all the way back there.
Oh, you bought one. What is it? Wait, pull it out. Go grab it. Let me see this thing. I've only seen the pictures online.
Now they sent other stuff, but this is just the track. So it's got the cool seafoam green like outer shell, but then the inner shell is the actual track.
Does it tell you like what part of the track it was? Like, was it section 724 of 2000?
No, I know they're numbered, and the certificate says what number it is, and I don't know if you can correspond that to anything. To be honest with you, you got the white parts there, so you can see the wheels rolled there at some point, and then you got the rusty part down here. I'm assuming that would be the bottom. So I'm thinking that they mounted it the same. Who knows how they mounted this? And I'm not you'd have to ask Danny Miller, because I'm not a
roller coaster nerd.
I was going to say expert, but nerd is more accurate there. I'm not that guy to know how these wheels run on this track, and who knows what piece of track this was. Supposedly they sold how many? I think like 2,000 of them or something like that.
I thought it was I thought it was 250, but that's how much they were, wasn't it?
They were 250. I know it was like at least 1,000 or so, and they sold out almost immediately.
It all went to the Give Kids or the Kid Again thing too, didn't it? The charity thing. I thought they all went to the charity thing.
I have no idea. And they gave you some other stuff like a certificate, like a button and a sticker, and maybe I bought the button. I don't know. It's really heavy though. It's shockingly heavy.
It looks light. Like if I were to look at it, it looks like, I don't know, it'd be like 2 pounds.
I'd say it's between the 5 to 10 range, to be honest.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a solid piece of steel, to be honest. I thought it was kind of cool, and I'm like, I'll buy it. And it comes with a little stand you can put it on. So it was something to buy. So obviously they took out Wicked Twister. We've been talking a while, and people keep like, well, why have you done another show? And I said, well, the 150th anniversary was kind of like self-explanatory. Plus, like, I just felt like everything was like, okay, COVID was just ending, and like the 150th just kind of like rolled out, and I went to it and was kind of like, something was a little off to me about the park last year. I didn't feel like the park was the same until Halloween weekends for some reason.
Yeah.
Like it just, something was off about the whole summer season for me. And I spent a lot of time there. And because at the beginning of the year, I booked a week at the Great Wolf Lodge in Sandusky in early June. So I was going to spend a whole week there, do the Frontier Festival stuff. And then they started closing the parks every Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So it's the whole season, just like, I just felt like it never really got started.
They didn't have the same hours.
They didn't have the same hours. The workforce was a lot lighter, and they were trying to basically beg people to work there with higher wages. And it just, everything just felt like almost forced to me last year. And I'm hoping that this year feels a lot better with
that. And last year they didn't have much of the outdoor live entertainment, or not even just indoor live entertainment during the summer either. So it sounds like this year they're going to, you were at Halloween weekends. They had all their live entertainment, or most of their, regular live entertainment back. So I'm excited to see that come back again this year.
So I felt like Halloween weekends have finally started feeling more like Cedar Point again. So I'm hoping that we just roll right into it here. And the best way to talk about Cedar Point is to not talk about what's happening this year, but speculating on the future, right?
Exactly.
Because everyone's like, why aren't you doing shows? Wicked Twister got pulled out. And I'll be honest, I was a little surprised that Wicked Twister ended up, because if you were to ask me before, like last year during the season, if you were asking me to put money on if Wicked Twister was leaving, I probably would have put a hefty sum on it was staying. I'm still a little shocked that I have a piece of track sitting in my house right now, because I didn't think it was a ride that deserved to leave the park. I think that ride, even though some people may or may not like Wicked Twister, some people love it. Some people are just like, I haven't ridden it in forever because the harnesses on it were so restrictive. Overly restrictive. I don't even know why. They were that restrictive. But I didn't think it was a ride that would have got demolished. I think best case scenario, if you would have said to me, okay, they're going to move it to another park, because I feel like other parks could use a ride like that, like a Worlds of Fun, a California's Great America. Even in California's Great America a few years ago, when they did a 5-year project planning out of everything and presented it to the city board, there was a picture of Wicked Twister in it. So a lot of people thought Wicked Twister would eventually move somewhere else, and for it to just get torn up and be sold off in pieces really shocked me. I think if you would have said, okay, Wicked Twister's leaving, I would be like, no. If you would have said Wicked Twister's leaving and being demolished, I'd be like, you're crazy. But both those things happened, and now we got a huge piece of land sitting out.
I don't find the fact that it's leaving or it leaving and getting demolished is that crazy, just because I mean, I live a lot closer to Cedar Point than you do. I'm there, a couple times a month during the summer, and every time I don't personally like the ride. I don't go on it much, but every time I go by it always seemed to be down. It seemed like it was a maintenance nightmare. There was just something going on that, it just reached the end of its life. And so that's why I'm not surprised it's gone. And if it wasn't because of maintenance, I don't think they would have removed the ride to begin with. I think it just came down. It was too expensive to maintain, or it was just down too much. Maybe it wasn't so much that it was expensive. Maybe it was just down too often. It was just the parts just weren't as readily available anymore. I mean, how many impulse coasters are there still? I mean, Dorney has one.
Valley
Six
Fair
Flags
has one.
Does Valley Fair have one?
Valley Fair still has theirs. Dorney has theirs. Great America has one. Six Flags Discovery Kingdom has a modified one because they had to shoot it forward instead of straight up because of local regulations that Six Flags didn't know about apparently when they built it. Did you ever hear that story?
I didn't, but
so if you look at the Six Flags Discovery Kingdom one, it looks like Wicked Twister, but with the two spirals, but one of the spirals actually goes more out, like almost.
Yes, I know. Did it have something to do with the height?
The height requirement that apparently Six Flags didn't know there was a height requirement, or something happened with the local airport and it got changed, and so they had to like shift it down so it kind of like shoots forward, which is, I've never been on it because it was closed when I was there. Great America just invested some money into theirs. They repainted it and they are renaming it the Flash, moving it away from the V2. So Great America is a park that's investing money in these rides and not just tearing them out. So it's kind of interesting how the parks view them. It's only like Wicked Twister is only 20 years old. It's not like it was like super old of a ride, but I think being out on the beach and experiencing the cold winters and I'm sure that all had to do with the maintenance issues. And then also Cedar Fair having that on again, off again relationship with Intamin. We always hear, oh, they hate Intamin, or they're never going to work with Intamin again, or
I'm sure that made it difficult to get parts if Cedar Fair's not hating on, but
which also
they have a difficult relationship with Intamin. The Intamin might not be willing to, oh, your Wicked Twister's down, okay, well, we'll get you a part in 5 weeks. Like, it's not like
I've heard that is part of the issue, that Intamin takes a really long time to supply parts to places because they are overseas. It's a Swiss company. And I don't know if the supply chain issues, but this was an issue way before supply chain became a word that people knew. That they've always had issues with supplying parts. I-305 is a good example of that. When the lift hill motor broke, it took
even Millennium a couple of years ago, the lift cable snapped. Yeah. It was down for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty quick turnaround for Intamin.
Right, especially coming overseas. I don't know enough about shipping and overseas and stuff, but I would imagine that's a pretty hefty. It's pretty heavy cable. It's probably pretty expensive to airship it. It might have gone on a boat or whatever, but
And it also begs the question as to what's going to happen with Dragster now, with that relationship with Intamin, that we know Dragster is now completely down for the 2022 season. There is no movement there at all. We don't know if it's a maintenance issue or if it's a legal issue, that they're still trying to figure out what to do with it. Or they like I don't want to go into the details of everything, but it's my understanding that the park kind of knows what happened. I don't know if the park knows how to rectify what happened. I'm assuming that they do. And the question is, do they want to try to rectify that problem with the hopes that it doesn't ever happen again? Is it a fluke 1 in a million thing? Or is it something that, could happen again with the other trains? Or if they just rebuild the one, there's a lot of question marks out there. And Dragster being down for all of 2022 also kind of surprised me, because I thought that would be reopened this year.
I don't know. I mean, I read bits and pieces of, the report that came out. It was a lengthy report. I don't care enough to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
So shame on me for that if I'm wrong in this, but I thought I remember, maybe it wasn't even from the report, but maybe it was just someone else, who read the report, who commented something, but I don't know if it's true. What I saw was that there, a part flew off the ride, but then there was also damage to the track.
I would assume that their track damage to the track should be easily rectified, though. So the thing, if the track was damaged, they there was an accident. The Cedar Fair probably didn't want to touch the ride while there was an ongoing investigation to fudge the investigation or whatever. So maybe they just had to wait, and now they have to go back to Intamin, have them re look at the track, refabricate it, whatever. So maybe that's why it's closed. They just have to go through something like that. But in fairness, when a good example would be when El Toro had their big accident on El Toro, where the track where the train derailed and tore up a hefty portion of the track.
Yeah,
because I think it was only like one car or some derailed, and as it progressed through the track, just tore up almost all the same thing. Into also another Intamin coaster. It took them basically almost a whole season to fix El Toro too. So, but that wasn't, I don't think so. The question is did it damage just a section of the track? Did it damage the whole track? That's a big question, because if it damaged the whole track, that's a big issue. That would be something that would take a lot of time to fix.
Yeah.
And are they willing to fix it?
Also,
that's another maintenance issue.
Not shortly after. A couple of years after Dragster opened, there was an instance where the launch cable shredded or something, or something happened. So people were injured, and that was obviously it wasn't as severe as this poor woman that got hit in the head with something. But that was an instance where the ride had a malfunction, people were injured, parts shredded, things were damaged on the ride, and they were able to get it up again in a few weeks. So there's something about this where it seems like there's more
going on here.
Yeah.
And
just,
I wonder,
part falling off.
I wonder if the more going on here is the same issue with Wicked Twister, if they're now at a position where they're saying, okay, is this worth continuing?
It's getting, because Dragster's going on
another
18 years. It was 2004,
2003.
So next year would be 20 years.
You could say 2004 with the number of times it was opened in 2003. You would not. You'd not be completely incorrect on that.
20 years isn't that long, considering you've got rides Blue Streak, Iron Dragon, Gemini, Raptor. Rougarou, or I guess Rougarou is newer, but the overall layout of it, Magnum. Those are all rides.
It's kind of like the thing to do now is just to pull out the rides, and I've always felt that ever since Dick Kinzo left, they've been a lot quicker on the trigger to pull out a ride. Just look at Cedar Point. You start with Disaster Transport. You go to Wildcat and Wicked Twister, and
if you think about it, outside of Disaster Transport, those are all low, or not low. They don't take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
Wildcat took up, a stage that
really.
the size of a small stage. Wicked Twister, I mean, it was very long, but
well, and that's the thing we're going to talk about here is I think people don't realize how much space Wicked Twister did take up. Because there's been some pictures like that. That was the whole point of this show here, was to talk about so here we're finally here. Well done there. So there's been some pictures floating around from the webcams that show Wicked Twister completely gone. People who are at Winter Chill Out kind of saw parts of that a little bit, right? You went to Winter Chill Out, didn't you?
I did not. I didn't go this year. I'll go next year if hopefully they announce something cool.
So Wicked Twister is completely gone now. There's been pictures of that, and people are talking about the boardwalk, and they're saying, "Oh, look at how they pushed out the boardwalk." And I don't think they pushed out the boardwalk. The boardwalk's already there. That if you look at where the sidewalk is, it's still there. The fencing is still there, but nothing of that has been changed, and that's more towards the Windseeker side, we'll call it. But about halfway into that, about where the station was for Wicked Twister, you can clearly see, and I put the picture up here. This is from the Cedar Point webcam. You can clearly see that the sidewalk and the boardwalk is gone as you approach Gatekeeper, and there's sand there. And the question is, why was this done? And I think first off, I think we can say, if you don't want to take any conspiracy theories and you don't want to say anything, it could very well just be for the removal of Wicked Twister, that they needed to get rid of that sidewalk to get the trucks in, to be able to load up the trucks, get the material out, and get this ride off of their property. So it could very well be that they had to destroy part of the boardwalk. They didn't move anything out, but it kind of makes it look like the sand piles have moved out the boardwalk. Would you agree with that? That maybe that's just for destruction?
Yeah, I would say it's probably just for the destruction of it. I mean, I can't imagine they would start something this early in terms of I don't know. Now that I think about it, maybe if they are going to start construction, I mean, so there was a tweet by Tony Clark or Cedar Point that said, guests are going to be able to see changes to that area throughout the season. So if it is just for construction, then that path of the boardwalk is going to stay in place. They'll put the fences back up, once the season starts, to keep people, from sneaking in or escaping the park or whatever. But if they were to move the boardwalk out, I would think they would do that now during the season, because people, if they're doing construction on it during the season to get ready for 2023, whatever it might be, roller coaster, whatever, and they're moving the boardwalk out, they wouldn't want to have to interrupt, the guests from getting from the parking lot to the beach, going all the way down.
Well, and that's the thing, is that you're going to have to put the fencing back up. So you might as well just do the fencing first, put the sidewalk in so that people can still use that boardwalk. And that was never there before. And it's actually become a really good convenience that if you need to get from the hotel to the front of the park, that's really the only logical way that you can do it now.
Yeah. Without going into the park.
Without going into the park, of course.
Or taking, if you were staying in the hotel, you'd have to, hop on a shuttle or walk all the way around.
And trust me, I've tried those things before, and it's not fun. It's a lot longer than you think it is. I think I made it to about like where Steel of Vengeance is, and the guy in the bus just said, "Just get on the bus. Like, you're not walking all of this." Because 1 year for Coaster Mania, I was staying at the hotel and I had to get to the front of the park. And there's no good way to get there. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll just walk around. And then the guy on the bus is like, no, just get on the bus. Like, we're not doing that. So, so now with that boardwalk, it's almost like they need it, especially, they've kind of built this whole aura around the boardwalk. But I do think that if you are putting in a roller coaster there, keep in mind, this is a beach. It's very loose sand. And anything of any significant height, you're probably going to have to really dig down. And I think it's going to be a lot longer of a project than, say, it's always an issue at Cedar Point because people don't realize that the whole thing is sand. and the ground, there has to be extra stability on every support usually. But being that close to the water line, I think you're going to have to go down even further. I just know Windseeker and the old Space Spiral went, man, I forgot, like 100 feet into the ground or something. It's like something like crazy when you start to think about it, because you have to hit the bedrock, that you have to get beyond the sand and hit the bedrock. And
all the water that's, under there. I mean, you're literally on the water table.
Yeah. So I would not be surprised to start seeing footers and stuff, or at least prep work, happen during this season, because you know how bad the winters get too in Sandusky, and especially if you're right on the damn water, like there is a real possibility that the weather really prevents you from doing a whole lot. Windseeker took forever to build, because they just ran into problem after problem, and then problems with the ride system after that. So I would not be surprised to start seeing actual construction in this area if it's a roller coaster. So I think there's 3 options here for this area. Okay.
Dark ride.
Dark ride is actually high on my list.
See, I don't have that on my list at all. That's why I said dark ride. But
well, and I'm going to say dark ride, and people are going to start yelling, because they're going to be like, "You just took down disaster transport because it's a big box, and you need to get rid of." And they want to open up views. And okay, I get it. I thank you for saying all of that again. But here's my point: Cedar Point has been having a whole lot of issues with wind on the peninsula ever since disaster transport was taken down. That disaster transport cut a lot of that cross breeze, crosswind that just cuts through the park now. And I think gatekeepers, like I remember the first year at Gatekeeper, they had that sign out front that said, "Hey, winds might knock this down for days at a time, down to high winds." I feel that like other rides have been going down. I feel like, and even
like
though
Windseeker was not the ride to put in that spot. I love, or not Windseeker, Gatekeeper even.
Gatekeeper too.
Gatekeeper, I love the ride. It's too wide. It takes up too much. There's too. I'm not an engineer. I don't know like the proper wording, but it takes a lot of wind. It's very affected by wind. It's not aerodynamic.
And it's not fast enough to, I think, fight against some of those wind gusts that you have. Now I'm saying it too. Gatekeeper is valid a few times. Not all the rides kind of valid. Raptor's valid. Gatekeeper's valid. Even
Woodstock Express is valid.
Is valid a couple times. I was there that day. Also, the roller coaster known as Pipe Scream valid one time too. So that also
the what the
roller coaster known as
roller coaster. Okay, that's what I thought you said. Good. Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm on the same page. Yeah, I'm on the same page as you.
So I think putting a dark ride there is not a. I don't think they're going to do it. I think that's the dark horse here. But I don't think putting a building there is going to be the end of the world, especially if you theme it correctly. Kind of build something more classic boardwalky, and then put whatever theme you want on the dark ride. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, but I do think it's going to be a roller coaster. I think it's the same 2 options that we've been talking about forever.
The year ago we did the show, and we've been talking about the
people
same
are like,
stuff.
Why haven't you done a show? I'm like, just go watch the old show. Like we identified a few years ago 3 different locations of where they could put in active development. We said Frontier Town, where the antique cars are, would be
now a restaurant.
Now a restaurant.
That's gone.
So that's off the books. We said the Monster Car, where the old dorms used to be, that was then turned into the Monster Car Rally or whatever.
And now, most exciting of all, which honestly is probably the greatest thing that Cedar Point has ever done, they turned it into a parking lot. They need more parking.
Oh, wow. So there you go. So now the last place we're left with is here where the marina was, where Wicked Twister was. And I think people are now seeing some of these pictures and are coming to what I've been saying for the longest time, that this is a massive piece of land, that people don't realize how big the plaza was. To Wicked
that picture
Twister.
Again, we gotta see the picture again,
like
so
the
everyone
picture
can see.
again.
Like there's a lot of space here.
Wicked Twister itself, because one, you had the whole entrance way. So that's one piece. And then you had the ride itself, which was a good piece of land cut out because you needed to have clearances on both sides, make sure there's fencing, make sure nobody got in there to give enough that if someone did jump a fence, you'd have enough time to maybe do an e-stop, that the fences weren't right on the ride. Plus you had the whole opposite side where the queue line went into there. So that gives you a few extra feet. Plus, who knows how deep they'll go into the beach? I don't know. People have always said that it could happen. So, and then you have the whole Midway. You have Tiki Twirl, which could be on the way out, could be moved again. Who knows?
See, I think that might stay, given my thoughts on my theming thoughts on what could go in that area.
And then you have the giant wheel where you could build something around the giant wheel. This is not out of the realm of possibility.
It's been moved once.
It's been moved once as well, so you could move it again. You look at California's Great America, Gold Striker built their wooden coaster around the Space Needle. So building a coaster around another ride is not out of the realm of possibility either. So I just think you're dealing with a huge piece of land. Plus, you could redesign the whole Midway to be, because that Midway itself is massive. It's probably the widest Midway in the whole park, besides the main Midway.
It is too wide for the number of people that go down it.
Exactly. It's way too wide for for like you said, the number of people actually using it. Plus you have all that stuff on the other side where you could use things like where that 3-point shootout is. If you need to swing something that way, or redesign the Midway through that so that the coaster would go out to where the Midway is, and then your walkway would go through the 3-point shootout. Like there's a whole bunch of ways to design that Midway in a new way and still have adequate flow or you could cut off the Midway completely and make and cut it off and make people, we're no longer using this as a walkway, that you got to go and you make the Gatekeeper Plaza into a dead end. So there's options there that you can do with any type of coaster, any type. But here's the two things I think we're going to do. I think it's one of two things. You say wood coaster, right?
I say wood coaster. I'll
the park desperately needs a wood coaster.
I'll go into what my two options after your two options.
Okay. So the park desperately needs a wood coaster. Like Blue Streak is great. It's a classic woody. They need a modern wood coaster. The problem is you're not going to be able to do anything like Mystic Timbers, because Mystic Timbers utilizes the terrain so much in what it does. You could go up higher and make those drops artificially without having terrain, but I don't know if you get the same ambiance with what you do. Like that drop into the ravine right before the shed on Mystic Timbers is amazing, because if you don't know the terrain, you're not expecting it, and that drop is really cool. Prowler is a little bit more flat, but Prowler still uses the terrain too. So I think if you're going to put something in at Cedar Point, you're probably looking something more like Gold Striker, where Gold Striker's on flat land, more of a twister concept. I know you're a big Thunderhead fan, right?
Yes.
I'm not a Thunderhead.
But even that goes a bit with the terrain too. So
a bit. I mean, it's a little bit, but I think you could flatten that out and not lose the essence of the ride. Whereas I think with Mystic Timbers, it is a terrain coaster. I think Thunderhead is more of okay, I can figure out how to flatten this out. The problem I have with a wood coaster is Cedar Point's all about the records, all about the biggest, the best, the baddest. How are they going to use this space? I say it's big. It's big enough for a coaster. Is it big enough for the best wood coaster in the world? I don't know. It might be. Can they make the best wood coaster in the world at Cedar Point? I don't know. They are like, Voyage is a really good coaster. And even if you don't like Voyage, Lightning Rod, are they going to bring in RMC to do that and do like a better Lightning Rod? What would you do there?
See, what I'm thinking, I don't know that they're going for best coaster, but best boardwalk area. They could add so much stuff there to make it, a Coney Island type of thing. They're going to have a coaster better than, the Cyclone. Like it's going to be more intricate than that. As great as that ride is.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because in the teaser video for when they pulled out Wicked Twister, if you didn't know what the end result of that video was, you would almost think that they were rebuilding the Cedar Point Cyclone.
Yeah.
Like when I was watching,
it might be called that, but I don't think they're going to rebuild that ride. But I think they'll do something, they'll make a fun wooden coaster, but they're going to add a whole boardwalk atmosphere around it. If you think of boardwalk, you got, a lot of carnival type foods, you got a lot of games. They have the whole games area. As soon as you walk into the park to the right, take out all of those games, move them to the boardwalk,
too.
Update all of the games. Yeah. You have that whole area now I worked at Cedar Point in my college days. Behind the games is a break area and like a cash office. You can easily move the cash office somewhere. I don't have proof of this, but I remember being at Halloween weekends when you're in line for what's the one by Gatekeeper, which is something or Hexed, the witch one. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. It looked like they were doing construction on that area, whether they were tearing it down or just basically updating it. I don't know. But all that's over there is like a cash office and like the merchandise area where they hold all the stuffed animals and whatever. You can move that. You can move that anywhere else throughout the park.
And they've been moving a lot of that stuff off of property too.
Yes.
Because they've been buying up all that stuff in the city of Sandusky. And I feel like they're buying it all up to move a lot of those things. Like you need a cash office, obviously, on the
right.
Because like in the immediate area.
Yeah.
But a lot of the storage, I feel like you can put elsewhere.
Cedar Point is also going cashless. All the Cedar Fair parks are, I think.
So maybe you don't need a cash office.
Maybe you don't need the cash office. You might not need the cash office on premise. You could totally move that off if that's the case. So they move all those games to the boardwalk. Make a basic family wooden coaster, something. I can't think off the top of my head what it might be. What I would want it to be is something like Prowler or Thunderhead. Something really thrilling, but maybe it's something simple. Who knows? Maybe it's a family wooden coaster.
Maybe it's taking what the Cedar Point Cyclone was and just updating it a little bit to make it really cool. And then, like you said, you have the Ferris wheel right there. You maybe move shift Tiki Twirl. It's a very portable ride. There's nothing special about where it's at. Shift it or make it so that the ride goes around it. I think you might be onto something there. Have some like cool lights on the side to give. I've always liked Wicked Twister and the skyline of that half, but I think a wood coaster would improve the skyline on that half of the peninsula a lot.
And you think about how much entertainment they've been trying to do on the beach in the past couple of years. Before COVID, they would have fireworks during they have Cedar Point nights. They have their 4th of July thing, and then Cedar Point nights through from July through the end of August, where they have fireworks on the weekends. People go on the beach and they got like glow parties or something like. It seems like they're pushing for a boardwalk, party atmosphere, in that area. And I think that would be fitting. You have games, you have, better food, maybe some type of bar, more restaurants not restaurants, but, more food options in that area that make it a place that people want to go to. Cause I don't go there at all when I'm at the park, because I don't like Wicked Twister. I don't ride Windseeker, and the only thing I would use that area for is a cut through to get to Gatekeeper or to go out that gate and go to the beach, and that's it.
That's an interesting idea, because they've always been like, oh, why don't they build a boardwalk onto the lake? And I've never been down with that idea. I've always thought that it was kind of like a pipe dream that just like I just never saw how it would materialize. But turning that section into a boardwalk itself, you have plenty of room, like you said. And if you do something, Cedar Point Cyclone was a thinner type roller coaster. It was almost like, it wasn't a figure eight, but it was kind of like that configuration where a traditional Coney Island Cyclone, I think Coney Island Cyclone's a little big for that area, but something like that could fit a twister concept. That'd actually be really interesting.
If it is a wooden coaster, I think it would be a very small wooden coaster just because wood coasters take up more space. So
They
my
do,
second
and
thought,
that's where pushing out into the beach, and we're gonna find out because we're gonna see footers, because there's gonna be a lot more footers for a wood coaster too.
yeah, the problem with pushing out to the beach would be, Lake Erie, it has tides, it has,
Plus
flooding
wood.
isn't the right
Right.
word, but
Flooding plus
it goes
wood,
far, it goes very far into
Yeah.
the park, during certain times of the year. So I feel like that would, especially a wooden coaster on the beach, wood and water probably, might, I don't know, not do too well over time, especially if you're, supporting people's lives, I guess.
Yeah.
When they're on the ride. So a wooden coaster takes up a lot more space than my second idea, which is, an RMC single rail coaster, which Wicked Twister was what, 270 feet tall? I don't remember. It was pretty tall.
Yeah. It's not
So
small,
they can go up that high in that area of the park. You could get a 270 some foot tall, single rail RMC coaster that, does all like, Wonder Woman lasso, very compact, has a lot to offer. The only problem is if I've never been on it. So if I'm just going off of what I've seen of it, it's, single, you got one person per car.
Yeah, it is.
It's
it is
low
a capacity issue. Yeah.
Which Cedar Point, if you're putting in a new coaster that's, supposed to be really
But then
great,
in
you
fairness,
probably want capacity.
And in fairness, though, Wicked Twister was kind of a capacity issue too. So it's
very true.
So, and this would be more, but we've kind of seen how the single rails, like I thought the single rails would be a complete disaster. And I don't know if it's just like, okay, people are like, okay, the single rails are good, but they're not like spectacular. So they're never like the best ride in the park. So like you're not seeing the flood of capacity that you would.
Which would be the same as Wicked Twister. The year it opened,
Yeah.
Was crazy. The queue wasn't big enough. Now, look at Magnum. From 30, 40, however long it's been there, if you go in Magnum, the queue line is huge. The only time you see it anywhere close to 3/4 full is Halloween weekends, and that's just out of the blue. But so the first couple of years of what if it was a single rail, capacity would be a nightmare. But over time, I think people would it would go down to more like a Valraven type level where it's
full on
popular during the morning because it's close to the front of the park, but by mid-afternoon it's dead. Look at Raptor. Try to ride Raptor first ride of the day. You have a 2-hour line, but if you go on at 5 p.m.
for the best ride in the park, that's what it should be. So
gross. You go on at 5 p.m. You're waiting 5 minutes because people by that time realize, oh, this ride is not that great. So,
oh my God, I don't know. I don't even know why I do a show with you sometimes, honestly.
we didn't do one for a year, so
I know.
I guess it'll be all right, guys. We'll see you next year.
We'll see you next year. No, my only other idea is I was trying to think about what record. So obviously with the single rail, you could probably steal some records. It would be the dubious records of tallest single rail, fastest single rail,
steepest drop of a single rail.
Exactly. The records that don't really mean anything, but you could actually get a real record in that space. And it's a record you're not going to like, because I know you're not.
Oh no. So, I can't do it.
So you could steal the inversion record. And the inversion record currently is held by Smiler at Alton Towers. So I think that space.
What is that, like 12?
No, it's got, oh wow. I want to say 14. Was it 12?
Oh no.
Hold on, let me see.
I'll
go on the website that won't be named. I'm gonna go to record inversions. Smiler's 14. Yeah, so 14.
Oh geez. Oh boy.
So
it's 14, not my vote.
I know it's not your vote, but a lot of people really like Smiler. So Smiler is in the Thrilling 32. It's a world-class ride. It's not in the top 10 or anything. And I think adding one inversion is the way. If you ever watch a POV of Smiler, it's like crazy. Like they find ways to just invert you in new and fun ways. I think you could steal it and get 15 inversions, especially if you let Matt come in. Mac also, a company that Cedar Fair has worked with recently. Copperhead Strike at Carowinds is their probably most recent coaster that they built in Cedar Fair. So Mac is a company that the park is working with. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Cedar Point comes in and says, hey, we want a legit record, and putting 15 inversions on a roller coaster would be a legit record, not like, steepest drop on the north side of Chicago. So
so I mean, that area is a big space, but I don't know if it's big enough for 15.
Oh, you should. Smiler is a very compact ride.
Smiler is very compact, and it looks compact. Like if you look at Smiler, you cannot see past the ride.
No, it loops on itself constantly.
I think Cedar Fair has tried so hard to open up that area where they're going to want to keep it low to the ground. They might not want to, block that view of the lake. Where
it's funny because
it might be more like a Copperhead Strike, where it's, you don't have a crazy, you don't have tall hills, but it's low to the ground, it's fast, and it's twisty.
It's kind of crazy because a lot of the things that we're talking about are going to block the view to the lake. A wood coaster will absolutely.
But a wood coaster fits because wood coasters belong on the lake. It's a boardwalk. That's different.
They do. A dark ride would block the view to the lake. The only things that would open the view would probably be a single rail, where that's the whole point of them, I guess. And maybe if you did, like you were saying, more of a low to the ground. I don't know if you could get 15 though without looping on itself. I just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. That's why I don't think they're going to go for the inversion record in that area. If it's anything similar to Smiler, I think it would be something like a hang time at the names
at Knott's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a basic something. Maybe it's the tallest of that type. Maybe they go for newest steepest drop. You could do the steepest drop now is probably 100 something degrees. I don't know. Maybe they'll find a way to.
They keep changing that too. It's hard to tell. But Smiler, I don't know. Smiler just looks. I would love a Smiler type ride at Cedar Point. You could even call it Wildcat 2.0.
That'd be pretty cool.
But yeah, it does not take up a whole lot of space. It probably takes up more than I'm thinking of, but I'm just looking at blueprints of it right now, and it is so on top of each other. Like you look at that and you're like, give that to a kid and try and figure out, have them play a maze with it, because it is just twisted metal all over the place, which I think is really cool. Wow. So I think those are my front runners here. I think wood coaster would be number one. I think single rail is probably pretty. It's in the lexicon, as they say right now. Everyone's talking about single rails, but I think the inversion record is a possibility. I would love to see it, to be honest.
Yeah, and watch, we'll be, those three will be wrong, and they'll throw in a 500-foot, something or other.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do that.
I don't know if you could do that right there, but
I don't know. We'll see. If they took out Dragster, now you're talking a lot.
There is a very cool video somewhere on YouTube. I don't know who created it. I don't know the name of the video, but someone made a no limits or Planet Coaster type model of what could replace Dragster, and it's really freaking cool. So yeah. I take that totally out of the question. Let's say we have no idea where Dragster is I'm for getting rid of Dragster. I
like Dragster.
I don't care for it. It is part of the Cedar Point skyline. It'll be part of the history forever, but it is so short. It has so many problems. I think they can do way better than Dragster. That can be another show.
I will say that even if you just did a 400-foot B&M coaster, I would be much happier with that than any Dragster ride I've ever had.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. That can be our next show. What would you do to replace Dragster? What could you put there? So start thinking.
Dark ride.
So as always, thank you for joining us here on CP Unlimited. I'm, of course, Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Steve Lynn from Cleveland, Ohio. And hopefully we'll see you sooner than a year from now.
Hopefully. Right on, Ride Warriors.